Learn how to mix clear, full, professional sounding vocals, no matter what style or genre of music that you're working with. Vocals are one of the hardest, if not the hardest, source of audio to mix. There's so many ways to get a bad sounding vocal and just a few ways to get them sounding commercially ready. Just look at all of the hundreds, even thousands of social media posts daily. They're all telling you to mix vocals differently. It's no wonder that when you try these tricks, your vocals come out sounding thin and separated from the rest of your mix. So in this video, I want to show you the key to consistently mixing great sounding vocals every time. And that key is found in my mixing template system that houses all of my parallel processing. Now, you may have thought about using a mixing template before, and maybe you're using one currently, but are you using it in the most beneficial way possible? Well, let's find out. First, I want to show you a template that I received in a course that I purchased back around 2017. It's got a ton of plugins, a ton of routing, ton of processing, and I now kind of refer to these as the junk drawer templates. The ones that have everything thrown in there, regardless of whether you need it or it's important. So let's just take a look at this. The beginning here, which I don't really do anymore, is the monitoring section, which that looks kind of simple, right? But then you've got all of these audio tracks. Now these are what you would put all of your samples on. And I don't even use that many samples. I've got a couple, and now I really just throw them into trigger. But this is a ton of space that we're using up in our session here. Now, this is where it gets super complicated. This is a bunch of drum groups, individual drum groups, that are then going to all of these different drum parallels. Now, all of these are being sent separately to drum parallels down here on the second send group, and up here is going to a bunch of different effects such as reverb. And we've also got some other processing on here. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. And then even on these parallels, we have more parallels that are going to, I believe, something called drum distortions. Also processing on top of those parallels. And here is where those drum effects are. So for drums, now you've got a beatbox section and a parallel beatbox. And here is a percussion reverb. So for drums in your beats, here's how many tracks. That's like a whole session. That's a ton of tracks. And you're going to have to keep scrolling through all of this. We don't even have the audio tracks included. So here's some bass stuff. Here's, a handful of tracks just for bass. Ton of processing already on here. Now, why would you need 3 different SansAmp? What is that? And then more distortion. It's just too many choices. It's, templates are supposed to simplify things for us, but it's also supposed to keep things consistent. And if I'm busy clicking through all of these to see which one I like or a combination, that's interfering with our time mixing. It's interfering with our choices. We don't need all of those options because, again, point of a template is to set that up, know it works. So again, here's some parallel guitars, guitar reverbs, delays, effects. 1 track for keys, I like that, sending to the parallel. Vocals, here's a ton of vocal stuff. Okay, now I like to send my vocals to, a combination of effects plugins, effects tracks, but I feel like we're getting a little bit complicated with all of these on here. I mean, compression, EQs, more compression, more EQ, the soothe, some distortion, some saturation, another de-esser, and then we've got a couple of different parallels here, some more effects. The effects are sending to effects. I think I would probably just rather stack up a couple of different reverbs or delays. We've got some different widening effects, some different vocal effects, and we're not even done. This thing goes on forever. We've got backgrounds, different background parallels. We've got 3 different sections for our backgrounds. Now we're at our group. So this is where our group section is for this template. There's a ton of them. And we're sending some of that parallel to a kick, snare, bass. It's not my favorite technique in the world, but it's also not the worst technique. And so here's all of our different kick, snare, and bass parallels. And we've got separate tracks for each of those. So I don't know if that's meant to be, a few sent here and there, or to see which one works the best. But let's take a look at this. This is, and these are numbered, right? We have these numbered. This is a template of 105 tracks. You've already got 105 tracks going on here. And this is just the template. If you had like a 50 track session to mix, you're going to spend more time doing this, scrolling back and forth, trying to find things. And then on top of that, seeing which thing you want to go in. Well, do I need to go to this play? Do I need to go to the 224, to the 480, to the room? Oh, does this parallel sound better than the other one? Does the SSL G bus, not even sure why that's on there, or the Fatso? Like, templates are supposed to simplify our choices. They're supposed to keep us consistent in mixing every time something that sounds commercial, professional, something that your client approves of. We have to be consistent in that, and that's what templates do. This is defeating the purpose of all of that. So what I want to do now is show you what my template looks like. All right, so let's take a look at what my template looks like. I know some of you have this template and are very familiar with its setup. So first of all, let's just look at it. Altogether, completely, what we have up is 45 tracks. So we are cutting that more than half. I've got my vocals, my parallel vocals, all of my group tracks here. These are my parallels. These are my effects tracks. We've got some for the drums, one for all of our instrument chambers, and vocal effects. And then we've got a widener, a doubler, and some pedal effects. Then my monitoring and my print section down here. And look at this. Look at our choices. Vocal parallels. They're all going through each of these. So we're using all of those. Then that's going down here through this chain, and that's it. We have one parallel. And then for the drums, my choices are pretty simple here. I've got a distressor to add some compression on the overall drums. I have a taste that goes parallel over here to the Acme Opticon, if I need to trash that up a little bit. I've got everything sending to the chamber just so it can all sound nice and glued together. One choice of compressors, I've just really been loving the LA2A style compression on a lot of the instruments, and then on the guitars, the LA3A. I've got a couple of EQ options. If I like the tone and everything's working great, then we've just got the Pro Q3 up there. Then there's also a couple of hardware emulation EQs. And then if I want to go back to the API on a couple of these guitars, I can. Those are just ready to go. But then, background vocals, EQ and compression. That's it. Sounds great every time. Here's a look at all of the different parallels that I have. It's all parallel compression. I've got a couple of transient designers there. One goes to the kick, one goes to the snare, just in case we need to sculpt that tone a little bit better if it wasn't captured in recording. Got a drum reverb. May or may not send it. And then all of the different vocal effects. Now I've got a compressor on some of those because if I feel like it needs the ducking effect on that, then I can pull that out and let the tail ring out. And then on a couple of these, I have 2 options, but that's pretty straightforward. I have an effects rack and then amplitude just for different guitar tones. And then some metering sections. and my mix bus, and then my 2 prints. Very simple. And this template design, I've worked it. I know that it's going to keep things consistent. It's going to give me a professional, polished sound, a commercial sound that I know that I'm going to like, that my clients are going to like, that those of you who I am coaching are going to like, that have picked up this style of template. This is available in Pro Tools. It's in Luna, Studio One, Logic, same exact concept. Now, some of the options that you have as far as plugin goes, but these can all be changed, but find the ones that you like. I personally love hardware emulation plugins. They're simple. I mean, how much easier is this, where you've got your EQ points already set for you to go through and see what sounds best, than to have to find it on a graphic EQ like this one. I always encourage people to pick up any sort of emulation, hardware emulation plugin. I think those work the best. One thing I forgot to mention is I have a limiter on all these things. Sometimes I won't even use the compressor. I just need to make that track more present in the mix. And that works perfect with the L2. But the most important thing to take away from this is that this style of template, if you really understand templates, because templates came from consoles. These templates that we have in our DAWs, the idea came from consoles and how you had everything routed with your console. You have a compressor on a send. You would send that track to your compressor and back on the return fader there and blend that back into your mix. It's all simple. And a couple of times we have a patch bay to take those out. And in our DAW, then we just set up 2. We bypass one and activate the other one. It's the same concept as using a patch bay. Overprocessing was the biggest challenge that I faced when first starting out as a mix engineer. And I watched a lot of videos and tutorials, and I followed what these people would tell me to do. I used what they used. I stacked plugin on top of plugin on top of plugin because I saw them mix that way. I thought that's how I needed to mix. I didn't even like the finished product that they had mixed. I thought there was a better sound to what they were producing. And I think that's a big challenge that we all face, because we see these videos and these courses that have had 30,000, 80,000 views, 50,000 subscribers, followers, thousands of likes. So psychologically, that tells us that we should be following them. In reality, it's just not the case. And a lot of times we can start ourselves down this path and this cycle of putting out mediocre music because we're just following someone else instead of using what we think it should sound like. Just because something is popular doesn't make it good. And that's why I decided to find credible mixing advice and techniques from Grammy award-winning mix engineers instead of social media posters. And then I took these techniques from these mix engineers and have adapted them to work completely inside your DAW. My mixing template is an emulation of how these reputable mix engineers use their vintage consoles. Because again, consoles are the original templates. I'm using the exact techniques, routing, parallel processing, even plugins that emulate hardware gear that makes award-winning music. Using this template simplifies everything down to what actually works, which is the whole point of templates. And this template has proven itself time after time, decade after decade. Now, you might be asking, okay, I love this template idea, but I don't have those hardware emulation plugins, especially the ones that you're suggesting in this template. That's perfectly all right, because you can use the plugins that you already have. The magic of this template is in the setup, and I'm going to show you how that setup all works together in the next video. So make sure that you're signed up for the email list or that you're subscribed here, because for the next few days, I'm going to be opening up a lot of my techniques and sharing them all with you. And be looking out for the next video tomorrow so I can show you that the plugins you already have can work perfectly with this amazing mixing template system. But before I forget, please leave me a comment down in the comment section below. Any questions that you have, any thoughts, or you can send me an email at emily@fairairmusic.com. I'd love to hear from you. All right, friends, that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one.